I just have a few thoughts that I would like to share with everyone here. First of all, thanks to all of our speakers for your memories, for your wisdom, and also for the contribution that you, or the people that you represent, and also your families, have made to our success these 40 long years. We've heard several people reflect on this, and I just think it's so true about Trojan that it really is just a story about people. And there was only a small handful of them at first, and truth be told, they were entrepreneurs and risk takers, some of them in midlife crisis perhaps. But they were pursuing a vision, they were pursuing a dream. And you know, it took a while to get traction. Very slowly, at first, that team expanded as the science of disinfection with UV was proven and then accepted. And Trojan's innovative engineering designs proved themselves to be both reliable and cost-effective. And the Trojan creativity machine continued to turn. Early adopters, the City of London and others, had their expectations met or even exceeded, and the Trojan team grew again. And you know, over time, as I reflect back on that, it became a movement, I think. Not just here in London, not just in Canada or in the US, but it's actually one that I think is spread around the world. It's been my privilege to travel to 50 or 60 countries, and you know, people know Trojan on every continent except for Antarctica. We're working on that. We were once asked to design a UV system for the space station, and I said, how big is the market? We'll pass. So over the years, UV disinfection now has gained widespread recognition and acceptance. And you know, predictably with that came many attempts to imitate our products and our services. And I have to say that in some ways we really do appreciate that, because good competition keeps us strong. But I think it's also true that the Trojan way has endured and has remained unique and special. And fundamentally, it's because of the men and the women who have made this company from the very beginning. I just want to reflect on what we set out to do as a company, particularly once we survived that first decade. And it was around that time that the leadership team sat down and developed a purpose statement. And that purpose statement read like this: we value the generations to come. We will leave to them a sound company that is dedicated to improving the health of the global environment. So how are we doing on that score? You should be asking yourself that question. Specifically, what has the Trojan team done to improve the health of the global environment? Well, for starters, we now have 10,000 or more municipal UV installations around the world. And I sat down a couple of weeks ago and actually calculated how much water they have treated from the very beginning. And it turns out that that number is 900 cubic kilometers of water. Now, a little hard to get your head around that, so let me give you something to scale that up against. That's about twice the volume of water in Lake Erie. And it's roughly the amount of water that all of the cities and towns in the world use municipally in 1 year's time. And in fact, for those of you who know what Niagara Falls looks like, it would take about 12 years for Niagara Falls to deliver the amount of water that Trojan systems have treated from the very beginning. And so to me, that's a big, meaningful number. But Now let's look at how much chlorine is not getting used in treating wastewater and drinking water, a portion of which would have been discharged into the environment simply because these municipalities are using a Trojan UV system instead of using chlorine for disinfection. Now, most of you, I think, know that chlorine comes in different formulations. It comes in gaseous form, it comes in liquid form, and it's dosed at different concentrations depending on the quality of the water and what level of disinfection you have to achieve. And it's also shipped in many different containers, ranging from small cylinders to railroad tanker cars. So for simplicity, let's just assume that all of the chlorine that Trojan systems are displacing would have been in liquid form, so sodium hypochlorite or bleach, and that we could actually consolidate all of that into railroad tanker cars. So think about it this way. How many railroad tanker cars full of liquid chlorine are not being used at municipal treatment plants around the world every day this year because of those 10,000 municipal UV systems? I know the finance team is already doing the math here, I could just tell. It turns out that that number is 285 approximately railroad tanker cars of chlorine per day. That would be a train about 5 kilometers along each day. And that would be about 100,000 railroad tanker cars of chlorine per year. Now, I didn't see anybody fall off their chair, but I can tell you when I did the math on that, I was a little bit surprised. In fact, so surprised that I talked to some of my colleagues and said, please check those numbers with me to make sure that I didn't, do some fundamental boo-boo in the math. And indeed, they came back and said, you know what, that's a pretty good estimate of the magnitude of Trojan's positive impact on the health of the global environment. I think you deserve a hand for that. Now, not only is Trojan's work contributing to keeping that much chlorine out of the environment while providing safe and reliable disinfection, but our UV systems also have a lower carbon footprint than chlorine systems. And it's our current estimate that the use of our UV systems this year alone, instead of chlorine, will reduce global carbon emissions by an amount that is equivalent to that emitted by about 800,000 cars. That's not a small number. And so not only are we keeping a chemical out of the environment, but we're also reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And as we've developed our capabilities and reach over these decades, Trojan's total revenues over that period of time have now exceeded $3.7 billion. And those profitable revenues have enabled Trojan to return over $300 million to its shareholders as retained earnings. Trojan businesses have provided over 11,000 person years of high quality employment around the globe, and over 60% of that has been right here in London, Ontario. In fact, Mr. Mayor, you might be interested in this. In London alone, that translates into over $450 million in employee payroll over that time period. Money that has gone back into the economy and helped create secondary jobs and tertiary jobs. further to that point, our London-based associates have returned over $100 million of their well-earned money to our federal and provincial governments in the form of income tax payment. So the finance team's not smiling about that. I think that's not a bad return for the few millions of dollars invested in Trojan via government grants over the years. A pretty good return on the investment. Finally, our current estimate is that well over 1 billion of the world's people have had beneficial impacts on their lives as a result of the use of Trojan systems around the world. That's 13% of the world's population. A good start, but we've got 87% to go. So all in all, so far, it's been an incredible journey, and it's your story. So I just want to say on behalf of our current leadership team, our heartfelt thanks for what each and every one of you has done to help us to get to this milestone. But I also want to take a moment to recognize and thank all of our colleagues around the world for their huge contribution to our success. Today, actually more than half of the men and women who make up the global Trojan team work in locations other than this one. They work for Trojan UV, our municipal business. They work for Viqua, for Solsness, for Aquafine, and they work for USP Technologies as well as for Marinex. 6 distinct and exciting Trojan businesses, each with unique products and services. So these members of our global team are the face of Trojan in Norway, in Finland, in Germany, in the UK, in France, in the Netherlands, and in Italy and Spain. And several of our European colleagues are here today. Guys, stand up for a sec. Thanks for being here. These global colleagues are Trojan's experts for our customers in the United States, in Mexico, in Brazil, and in Chile. They were the ones who brought UV to China's largest cities, so that today 1 in 5 people in China live in cities that use our product. That's 20% of the population of China has water disinfected by Trojan. Not bad for a local company. And we have colleagues who live and work as our ambassadors in Singapore, in Australia, in Taiwan, in Malaysia, and in India. And we have an Indian colleague who's here today. Please stand up. Came the greatest distance. Yeah. All of these people work tirelessly to introduce Trojan UV to new markets. And you know, I thought it was fitting in a way. Just yesterday morning, the first email that I read was from Michael Coons, who is in Malaysia, announcing a $1 million order for the city of Penang in Malaysia, a place where he lives. So, Michael and team, well done. So to all of our Trojan colleagues around the world, we are grateful for your expertise, for your commitments, and for the passion that you show every day. I think it's no exaggeration to say that Trojan is trusted and our solutions are used in more than 90 countries on 6 continents because of you. So I am, as we're wrapping up here, I'm truly grateful that you are all here to help us mark this major milestone. We have so much to celebrate and to be thankful for. At the same time, there is more work to be done. Global water stress and water scarcity have become, in my view, one of the most serious challenges of the 21st century. And so I think in many ways, the first 40 years of this company have prepared the Trojan team to play a crucial role in addressing these global challenges over the next 4 decades and beyond. The present and future generations of women and men who make up the Trojan team will have no shortage of opportunity to make a positive and impactful contribution in a hurting world. So at our 50th, Barb, you coming to that? Sure. Yeah, good. At our 50th anniversary celebration in 2027, I am looking forward to hearing the stories of how Trojan has built on the accomplishments of the first 40 years, embraced the challenge, and had an even bigger impact on the health of our global environment. So thanks again for being here today, for being a part of the story so far, and for all that you've done to help us along the way. Thank you very much. Thank you.